Do in Syria, Russian President Vladimir Putin has taken on the unexpected role, some might say, of peacemaker. What a strange morning we have woken up to with all of this, right? Offered an alternative to military action while calling for renewed efforts to bring Syria's warring sides to the negotiating table. So what is really behind all of this? Simon Marks is the president and chief correspondent of Feature Story News and is one of the few correspondents to have had an interview with Vladimir Putin. Simon, welcome. Good to see you here this afternoon. He clearly fancies himself a macho man. We have seen that in so many ways throughout Vladimir Putin's political career. He's feeling especially macho these days, it would appear.
I think that's absolutely right, Martha, and you're right to say that we've seen it throughout his political career. That interview that you referenced I did several years ago for the Fox News channel, and it was in the early part of Vladimir Putin's first term in the Kremlin as president. And, you know, he fixed you with a steely eye. He brushed away his translator when questions were being translated into Russian because he clearly understood enough English to get a sense of what he was being asked. And, you know, you came away from the experience sensing that this was a man who knew exactly where he wanted to take his country, and where he wants to take his country today, as then, is to a powerful and leading position on the world stage. He wants to challenge the concept of American hegemony, and you really saw that very clearly laid out in the New York Times opinion piece that was published yesterday, where he's basically challenging the whole concept of American exceptionalism. In many ways, that was the more interesting part of the article than the bit where he's talking about Syria.
Yeah, you know, we haven't seen this kind of brash swagger from a leader of Russia since it was the Soviet Union. And, you know, going back to Khrushchev, you think of the Russian leaders who sort of had that position on the world stage that sort of struck the fear in the hearts of people when they watched them move in their positions. You say that he is playing our president like a violin right now.
Well, I think you can certainly advance that argument. I mean, the Russians saw the opportunity that was created on Monday when John Kerry, almost in an ad hoc fashion, standing next to the British Foreign Secretary William Hague, sort of suggested that perhaps the way out of this crisis was for the Syrians to surrender their chemical weapon stockpiles, but then immediately went on to say, of course, that's not going to happen. Well, the Russians saw that as a massive opening and rushed in, literally rushed in. In the case of Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, my colleagues in Moscow tell me he raced to the briefing room at the Foreign Ministry in order to say to the world's press, hang on a second, there's an opening here and we're going to seize it. So since then, Putin has very successfully projected himself in the lead role on this issue on the world stage, just weeks after projecting himself in a leadership role by granting asylum to the fugitive whistleblower Edward Snowden.
Yeah, good point. So there is the possibility, though, as quickly as things turned this time, that they could turn again. And you say that, you know, to assume that Assad and Putin have a cozy relationship may be giving that friendship a little too much credit in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a relationship based on pragmatism. It's also clearly a relationship based on history. Bashar al-Assad's father, Hafez al-Assad, was very close with Soviet leaders, and then, of course, with Boris Yeltsin, Vladimir Putin's predecessor in the Kremlin. However, this is a relationship currently based on the pragmatic need that they have for one another. Bashar al-Assad, it's wonderful to have an ally like Vladimir Putin. Arguably, Vladimir Putin has saved Damascus and other parts of Syria from a missile attack launched by the United States. For Vladimir Putin, Bashar al-Assad is equally useful because, like Edward Snowden, he creates an environment in which Vladimir Putin can use the issue of Syria to challenge American leadership and to say to a variety of other countries out there that also are suspicious of American leadership on the world stage, you know what, I'll be your standard bearer.
Well, the White House will have to eventually make a move to try to change this dynamic, and it'll be very interesting to see what they do. Simon, thank you so much. Good to talk to you again.
And you, Martha.